Hi everybody, and welcome back to the ADHD Eavesdrop, where you can be a butterfly on the wall and listen in to my conversations. Today we're going to continue our conversation with my daughter Savannah and her now husband Jack that we started a few weeks back. It's a long conversation, so I broke it up into a lot of pieces. If you haven't listened to the first part, go back and listen to that, and let's just dive right in.
Like desperate running.
All right, we're back. It was a quick break. So where were we?
Well, we were just now talking about vocalizing. And I was saying how it's funny that Jack is a vocal king.
All the time.
He walks around the house vocalizing do-do-do-do-do-do-do's all the time. I know you've heard that 1,000,000,000 times. Mm-hmm. You'll be talking to yourself. You talk to yourself like nobody else I've ever known. Like, there was a time, it was actually really funny. I came home from work for lunch, and he was in the bathroom and taking a shower, and I heard him talking to himself, and he sounded mad. Like, so pissed. And I was like, oh God, what did I do? Like, I immediately, and that's another ADHD thing, I thought it was about me.
Of course.
Oh.
I thought for sure I screwed up.
Kicking in.
I was just in a scene.
Well, that's what happened. He came out of the bathroom, and I was like, are you okay? What's going on? And he's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, you sounded so mad. And he's like, I don't even know what I was saying. I have no idea.
I blacked out.
And then eventually we figured out, because he told me, he was like, oh, I was running lines in the shower earlier. And I was like, that's what you were doing. He was running lines for missing persons.
Oh.
He was angrily talking about something. Who knows?
Actually, I do remember now.
You were script writing.
It was for the police scene. Yeah.
Okay.
But that's and that's wild too, because it's very funny that like the way that these thought processes will go, because a lot of the reason why I vocalize is to announce my presence. I'll like come into a room and I don't want to like. I'll also tiptoe for similar reasons. Like, I kind of
You don't want to startle anybody.
try to sort of be a lighter sort of moving around, but I also don't want people to be surprised by me, so I'll do as I, like, come around corners. Conversely, here I am in the shower, where I think no one can hear me, having just wild conversations.
I don't talk to myself as much. Sometimes I do when I'm trying to figure out what the hell I'm trying to do. Mm-hmm. But most of the time, it's humming. I hum a lot. And I read somewhere that people sometimes hum to soothe themselves, like cats purr to soothe themselves.
Oh, yeah.
It's the vibration that is soothing. I kind of wonder, like it's like,
Yeah.
maybe that's why I hum so much. But I do hum. But I'm not going to say I'm a hummer, because you know what that means.
Right. That's got different connotations.
The connotations that are associated with that particular term, we're going to leave
It's
alone.
just a car.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Sure.
Sure.
We'll go with that.
That's what
good.
I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
for
right. I'm
sure.
sitting here with my daughter.
As if that's ever stopped us. You went to my bachelorette party.
I did indeed. I have ADHD. Savannah has ADHD.
My best friend has ADHD.
Oh, and another one of your bridesmaids.
Another one of my best friends.
Yeah, another one of your best friends. So we had a few of us there with ADHD mixed in with this smattering of neurotypical. And I was kind of observing a little bit
Oh, I believe that. 100%.
how it was going. I had to laugh because once we started in heartily on the partying, our ADHD
Kicked into full gear.
and our neurotypical friends then were hurting us like cats, essentially. And I thought, you know what? Even under the influence of alcohol, we're a little different.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, totally.
100%.
We're
Absolutely.
a little different. I mean, because I change topics quickly when I'm not. But, oh, my damn.
Uh-huh. I know.
So, yeah, I was watching Bailey in her neurotypical way, just, like, managing everything. And I have a hard time following my own stream of thought. Like, my stream of thought, like, I'm following the stream of thought. I'm on the stream. I'm paddling away. Everything's great. All of a sudden, there's 4 ways I can go, and there's a waterfall in the middle, and
Paddles broken, alligators
everything's
are there.
going crazy. And Bailey's like, oh, we go this way.
Yes. And all of a sudden she's in charge and she knows what she's doing, and it's It's incredible, but that's a lot of pressure for one person.
It
to
really
have
is.
to
For
face.
sure.
I
Yeah.
don't think she lets on how much pressure that is to her.
No, I don't think so either. All right, Jack's got a thought.
I was remembering a thought I had earlier where I was going to talk about how I save thoughts for myself to
Oh,
remember
yeah.
later.
Oh, yeah. How do you do that?
Yeah, so it's very specific to actually this hand technique that we're using, and it is something I learned in acting. There is obviously a physical relationship that you have between yourself and your fingers, and in a similar way to tying a string on one of your fingers to remember something, you can do that mentally as a process as well. So when I was trying to remember that thought earlier, I made it stick to one of my fingers. So I would
Okay.
remember this finger, this is the thought, here is the one word or two word phrase that reminds me of that. And I was just like, oh man, I learned me a few coping mechanisms, I see.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You've learned how to accommodate yourself.
Yes.
I should figure out one of those for me.
Well, you could take that to your coach.
Yeah, that's
Ooh,
true.
There
That's
you
true.
go.
We
Those
haven't
guys are
talked about
cool.
We coaches are very cool.
Oh yeah.
I would like.
Well, I was just talking about too how much my coach has helped me, and like how much it's been so incredible to like have another ally to remind you of the goals that you have, because
Yeah.
it's so easy to get again sidetracked. You go off on the canoe on a different course, and like meanwhile you have the talent and skill to make progress on that part anyway and still do what you want to do.
My coach is always reminding me of my goals. They always bring up the one about me wanting to have a family.
Yes.
And they're like,
What?
I know this is a big goal for you. So what choice can you make in this scenario that's going to help you reach that goal?
Yes.
And sometimes it's not the fun choice. A lot of the times it's not the fun choice. I have thought a lot about how my instant gratification part of me, the now part of me wants something. And I have to be the responsible adult and think long term, well, you know, I want a family, I want a house, so I need to stick it out and I need to do this thing.
Yeah, well, it's a really interesting balance to strike as well, because there is like that is absolutely an important part to like come at it with, but then you also still have to deal with the fact that instant gratification monkey is there.
Yes.
So what's the compromise in that moment? You know, like maybe we can't spend blankety blue dollars on gourmet, but like what if we get just a little bit of pizza, or like what if
Right.
we cook tonight and then plan on our time out being like the next day?
Or you babysit our nephew on Tuesdays
Yeah, exactly.
to get some baby time in.
And you figure
Yeah.
out how to make the time outside of the insufferable thing better.
The thing about wanting it here, wanting it now, and instant gratification is the fact, and I've talked to you about this before, is that time horizon thing.
Yep.
And if you push a positive consequence out too far, it ceases to be real.
Yes.
Right, exactly. So
Oh.
waiting for the
So
thing that
when
you want.
when you say this is my goal and this is what I want, and then you look at it and you place it too far out, it's you just moved it out into your not real.
Yeah.
Yes.
But if you place it too close,
Then
you're
it's
setting
I
yourself
want it
up
now.
for failure because
Right.
you can't do it yet.
Or
You're
you
not
can
in
just
a
give
place
yourself
yet
that
where you
award
can
too
afford it.
quickly.
Well, because we're here and now, people. It's really
Yes.
hard for us to see into the future, and honestly, it's hard to learn from the past.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, very
You know?
much
Very
so.
much, yes.
And that's not always the case.
One thing too that just kind of triggered a thought in my head that I've had once in a while. I have a fun thought experiment I like to jot down every once in a while. Maybe I scream it in the shower, or you know, where I wonder what like the ideal world and situation would be for like an ADHD person. And as I continue to think about it, I mean, in a realistic sense, I think rock hunting is really like so close to like pretty much perfect. But I do see this other reality of like eventually it just being the singularity of flashing lights and like of these physical objects you can interact with, like being inside of a Rubik's cube.
VR.
That would be overwhelming because I can't do VR.
And it's really absolutely. So going along with that, I think about like my friend she loves Disney World and Disneyland, everything Disney, and all the lights and all the activity and all the people and all the things, and that really feeds her ADHD, right? Because she gets the dopamine from all of that. She doesn't hit what I tend to hit. It's like I'm like dopamine. Oh my god,
Crash.
Too much dopamine.
Yes.
Crash.
Sensory nightmare.
The portcullis falls. We are done taking in any kind of stimulation.
Yeah, it's like when I go to the casino, I'm having a great time for the first hour or two, and then all of a sudden I'm like, shut up. You guys are so freaking loud. What can we turn all of these down?
And I have
Absolutely.
said before, amusement parks, Disney, Cedar Point, Michigan's Adventure, fairs, I hate that crap. I really don't. I cannot handle, like, fairs are a different story because I do like a county fair. I do like a local, small kind of fair, but like amusement parks, can't do it. That is a sensory nightmare for me. Don't like roller coasters. That's too much. I don't like spinning rides. They make me sick. The crowds piss me off.
Well, and there's something to be said that, like, I feel like we could get such a journey from every person with ADHD struggling with their bandwidth. That, like, because that is something that's been a lifelong struggle for me, is, like, finding the perfect balance of, oh, I'm enjoying this activity. This is great. Oh, I've hit my limit.
Yes.
Time to back away.
Absolutely.
Time to tactfully disappear.
Yeah, but how do you tell people who are neurotypical
Yeah.
that you're done?
So when I taught economics, I taught the law of diminishing returns.
That's so good.
I don't know what that is.
So
great.
for those of you who don't know what the law of diminishing returns is, it means that I'll give you an example. Okay. I get a box of donuts in the morning, and as I'm driving to work, I'm shoving these donuts. Oh, yum, yum, yum. This donut is so great. And then I get to work and I shove another one in my face because it was like really good and it was great, you know. And then the third one, I'm like, yeah, this is pretty good. And by the fourth one, the returns that I'm getting are not nearly as large as the returns I was getting at the beginning.
Absolutely. The novelty is worn off.
All of a sudden,
for many
donuts
things.
taste awful.
Exactly.
Have
And
too many.
for us, a lot of times that happens really quickly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, like, here you are, you're getting the first donut kind of input, and then all of a sudden you're like, I feel like I just ate 4 donuts.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Right.
And you're like,
Well, and that's why
I can't eat any more donuts.
Right.
That's why I like a smaller event, or I like an event at my home, because then I can just disappear.
Yes. Absolutely. You can have a bespoke situation for when you need to take a rest.
Well, and I love the fact that in our family, because of the fact that we're all neurodivergent and we all face that same struggle of sudden overwhelm, or not even sudden, but just overwhelm from a social situation that you're absolutely loving and enjoying, and then all of a sudden it's just too much.
Yes.
But being in a family of people like that, if you walk away and you go hide in the garage for 10 minutes, everybody's just like, oh, they just needed a break.
You go to the bathroom for a really long time, people are like, are they okay? They just need a minute.
Right. You know, and so like in a neurotypical person's eyes, they're like, what the hell?
Right.
Right? And we're like, oh no, I get it. Go ahead.
Absolutely. That's something I've really thoroughly enjoyed about just like getting to know you guys, getting to know your family, and getting to be a part of that family, is like the fact that you respect people's need to step away sometimes. And like, as someone coming into that equation with a nice little smattering of depression to go along with it, I already had such a low bandwidth to begin with that like is just such a blessing to be surrounded by people that get it. Like, especially when we have people over at the house.
And
I remember when we moved in with Nate and Bailey, they're very social people.
Yes.
Very social people. They have a lot of parties, they go out a lot, and they're great, and they like to hang out with us, so they invite us.
Yes, it's
And
delightful.
I remember when we first moved in with them, Jack would have a hard time, like,
Totally.
handling that for a long period of time. We would go out to dinner, we would go out for drinks, and we'd be out for a long time, and then we would get back, and he'd be like, I'm going to bed. I am done. And I remember Nate telling me at one point that that is something that he's always respected a lot about you, is that you know your limits, you know when you're done, and you don't have a hard time saying no.
Well, from a man I respect tremendously, that means a lot.
But I think he might struggle a little bit more with saying no and with stepping away from those situations. So it's something that he sees in you that he would like to see more in himself, maybe.
Aw.
When I remember having a conversation with Savannah, and I don't remember if it was with you or if it was just with Savannah.
I was listening. I had a bug there.
Probably. I know. You're always listening.
Technology's a miracle.
He's everywhere. And saying to her, if you guys want to drive separate and Jack wants to go home early, it's okay.
That's so sweet.
I don't mind. Nobody is going to be offended. But in a lot of families, if you were to leave before your wife or your significant other,
That would be a big deal.
it would be a big deal. But in our
What's
family,
wrong
it's like,
with you?
nope, Jack's tapped out. Or, sometimes Dad's tapped out. Like yesterday.
I've so loved bonding with Dad over that.
Yes.
It's like, we're done with this event now.
Yes, we're done.
Yesterday,
Yes.
you guys were both done at the same
They
time.
were, like,
Unfortunately, you
tapped
still
out.
had more to do.
I also lived there, which was
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you have the obligation side of it.
And
You have to
Bailey's
meet your
like,
obligations.
where's Dad? And I said, he's in the truck over there waiting
Yes.
for me. He's
He's
done.
decompressing.
He's done.
He's done.
Yep.
Can't do more.
Right? And so a lot of times, and I don't know if it happens with you guys, but a lot of times the conversation before we go to an event is, do you want to drive separately or do you want to drive
Yes.
together?
Or like, how long are we planning on staying? Because we do that too. Because,
Absolutely.
And it depends on the situation that we're in. If we're going to one place, I might say to Jack, like, hey, I don't know how long I want to be here.
Yes.
How long are we planning on staying? And we'll come up with a plan on, how long we're going to stay. And if can be the same way for you. I don't know if I want to be there that long. How long are we planning on being there?
Right. Well, and I see that, like, I think we really started to exercise that muscle when we moved to Chicago, because we would almost every time we would go out, we would have this delightful little powwow in the car before going to wherever we were meeting our friends and deciding, all right, how long are we feeling like staying? How do we want to organize this, our experience with this event? What's our bandwidth right now?
We can come to an agreement. We'll be like, hey, how
It's
about
so
we
great.
stay till 7 and then we can play it by ear.
And that skill has stuck with us.
And we've gotten to a point now where we can communicate silently.
It's great.
Like, I can just look at him and know that he's done, or he can just look at me and it'll be like, I need to get me out of here.
Yep.
Like, I'm done.
And it
Usually
has-
you know
and the
before I
thing-
even look at you.
The thing is, too, is like, it has nothing to do with the activity or the people you're with.
no.
Yeah.
And that's the thing I always worry about, is like hurting their feelings or whatever, because they think, well, dang, they just ditched quickly or whatever.
Yes.
And it's like, it's not, I
About
love
you.
you. I want to
Yes.
spend that time with you. I want to talk with you. But right now I'm so overwhelmed that I feel like I'm going to crawl out of my skin.
Yes.
Literally.
Right.
And I need to leave.
Absolutely.
And
Well, that's something that I feel like I've gotten a little bit of grace for, because, like, people knew I was a strange nut. Like, sorry, I keep saying these things as you're taking a sip of a drink. I'm like, I'm sorry.
I
But,
like strange nut. That's
people
a good one.
think, but people, I got to go into these situations knowing that people are like, okay, he's a little odd, but, like, delightful to be around, excellent presence, like, let him be the thing that doesn't fit in this box. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
Absolutely.
that's something I was very grateful that I got to carry around with me, that, like, I truly don't fully know how I managed to just, like, come to terms with that within myself.
You learn how to accommodate yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think your dad and I, we kind of broke the mold in our family, because my grandmother would get very upset when we would drive separately, because we would talk about it and he would be like, I don't want to be there for 4 hours. And I would be like, but I do want to
Yes.
be there for 4 hours.
Well, yeah.
So why does he have to be miserable for an extra 2 hours, or why do I have to be sad because I have to leave early?
Yes,
Right.
right.
And so we
And
just
get less family time.
right,
for
and
it.
so we
yeah.
compromised and we just drove separately. My grandma thought that meant like we did not have a good marriage.
No, well, and we do the same thing with Nate and Bailey sometimes too, where they
Yes.
want to drive together, and I'm like, we're gonna drive separate because Jack might want to leave early, or I might
Yep.
want to leave early, and then one of us can go back with you because thankfully we live together.
Well, and there's an extra perspective to that that's really valuable, that they've got a new baby. And
Yeah.
that new baby is going to be very popular for a very long time.
Yes, and they like to hang out for a long time. Like
Oh,
I
yes.
said, they're very social creatures.
Absolutely. It's
Not
one of
that
their
I'm
superpowers.
Not that we're not, but
Yeah.
I think that we tend to run out of that social battery. They like to entertain. They like to have
Oh, yeah.
parties.
They put their skill points into that, which is great.
Bailey can throw.
I
quite a
envy
party.
him in some ways.
Yeah,
I envy
same.
Bailey in so many ways.
I mean, again, coming into that situation from moving back from Chicago to like, we're
Isolation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
from pretty much full isolation to living with folks who have a full like fraternity to
we were just talking about
organize
this
with.
earlier today. We were just talking about this. We went out to breakfast and had a breakfast date. And
Delightful.
we were talking about how the social burnout when we came back from Chicago was absolutely insane because
It's
we
so
were
real.
so isolated that we were like, I am going to be social. I'm doing everything. We're doing a play. I'm teaching dance. We're going to the Thirsty Bird every Friday. We're joining parties.
The irony of that too is that we have gotten so incredibly more artistic opportunities after moving back home
Yeah,
than we
it's
ever
true.
had in Chicago.
It's true. Bring it back to the arts here.
Yes, like it was wild.
We left out the part where you guys moved back to Michigan.
Yes.
So after you lived
Oh,
in
yeah.
Chicago for a couple of miserable years,
Yes, and hated it.
your sister-in-law and your brother made a suggestion that you hopped right on.
Yes.
Yes.
Tell us about
They-
that.
So
Here's a lifeline. We're like, sure.
We'll take it.
Yes.
Yeah, they basically had made the offer. They said, hey, anytime you want to come back to Michigan, you can move in with us. We have an extra bedroom. And for a long time, I think we didn't take that super seriously, but the more they said it, the more it felt like an out.
Yeah.
And we needed an out.
And it was a really healthy step for us at the time. Like, there were definite things that we needed to learn in order to grow by moving to Chicago.
Yeah,
But
I don't
think-
regret it for an instant.
Yeah, but I think by moving back too and just being really benefited by the grace and kindness of our family members, like, we got to come back and yeah.
Having the village. Bailey talks a lot about her village, and
Yes.
we had that village, we had that family to come back to, and I think that's a lot of what we were missing in Chicago is that
Definitely.
we didn't have our village. And it takes they say it takes a village to raise a kid. It takes a village to stay sane.
Yes.
You
Oh my
need
God,
your
yes.
family, you need your friends, you need your network.
Yes, I like to see it as like planets. Like, you've got an orbit, right? And like, you've got folks that are like moons, and you've got other planets that keep you sane. Like,
Well, and then you've got someone who's on the way outside of the orbit that you only see every now and then.
yes, and it's so special when they come around those
You're
every
like,
20
oh my gosh,
years.
it's so good to
like,
see you, and then they're gone.
So that's like, not only did you move in with your brother and his fiance,
We moved in with two of their friends
two of
That's
their
right.
friends, but then you also moved with him
to their new house.
to their new house.
That's right.
And so in his podcast, we talked about the period of time where you were
yeah.
between the houses.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
And we lived with
they
you guys.
They lived in a camper on their property, but we really didn't talk about what happened to you guys.
We lived
this
in a camper
process.
on your property.
Yeah, absolutely.
With our cat who hated it. Hated every second of it.
So Nate and Bailey got Grandma and Grandpa's camper, and you guys got our camper.
Yep.
You were here, they were there.
Very
Yes.
grateful. It was
And
much
then-
better than setting up in that pole barn with the dirt floors.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, and then we went to Japan for a
man.
week, and
What
we're
a
just
blessing.
out of the
Such a good
country.
time.
And that was around the time that our nephew was born. He was born before we left, and then just after we got back, he went to the hospital. And then,
I mean the day.
yeah.
Yeah, seriously.
No,
Literally-
it was literally the day because we were
Because
we
you hadn't
were
moved
here.
into your room yet.
We got back
Yeah.
on Sunday, and on Monday, morning we were like, hey, we're gonna go up see the baby. We haven't seen the baby at home yet. We saw the baby at the hospital. We haven't seen the baby at home.
What a sweet little nugget.
Yeah, and so we wanted to go see the baby. So I remember calling Nate and him being like, yeah, you can absolutely come over. We're taking Killian to the hospital. And I remember
because you were here, because we were looking through pictures and stuff.
And I remember my
and we were like, oh,
heart
cool, we're not panicking
stomach.
at all.
No.
I immediately was like, oh, okay, what's going on? And we did end up going over. Thankfully, our family was amazing and set up a room for us before we got there, and we were able to move in. But I remember we didn't see him outside of the hospital until he got home from his surgery.
Yeah.
And I remember finding out about what was going on with him, and I remember having to leave work because I was sick to my stomach with worry and anxiety.
As soon as that kid came home, that's when the loving began.
Oh, he's great.
When the cuddles.
Perfect now. I mean, thankfully.
What a sweet kid.
Man's healthy as hell.
Yeah.
So, even with the pluses and minuses, I should get like all 4 of you together. Or
Oh, that'd be
5
fun.
of you together. Because even with all the pluses and minuses, I think it has been a unique experience that not everybody gets to have.
And I was just thinking about that too. The fact that we had the opportunity to live with them, and I have the opportunity to have lived with my nephew for the whole first year of his life.
That's beautiful.
I've gotten to see so much of his growth. I feel so lucky to have that. And I'm sure they would say similarly. They felt lucky to have our help because we're there every Tuesday, or at least we try to be there every Tuesday. Mm-hmm. And we're always on hand whenever we can be, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's just it's been so great to like get to be on hand and get to be a part of this process. Like, and I think the thing that takes it even a level more is like what I refer to it in my own mind as the hidden blessing of being able to observe that.
Yes.
Because we have also been able to sit here and look at that and be like, oh, what an absolutely incredible journey, an incredible time, and what these amazing lessons we've learned. Like, I interpret other people sometimes, depending on who they are and what the situation is, as not having had the chance to observe their life and what they've gotten to learn from it. And just being in a situation where we were stable enough to get to do that is just so amazing.
Well, and they say you grow through what you go through, right?
Yes. Oh, that's so good.
We've gotten to grow through what they've gone through.
Yes. We've wallflowered on them hard.
I have gotten to take so many notes. We did this with their wedding, too. We got to see them do the wedding first and be like, okay, what do we want to do the same and what do we want to do differently? Mm-hmm. We get to do the same thing with the way they're having their first child. We get to say, okay, so how do we want to do that differently? How do we want to do that the way that they've done it?
Yes.
Because I really admire a lot of things about what they've done as far as teaching him and as far as, parenting goes. And I want to be able to replicate some of that when we are able to. But yeah, living with Nate and Bailey has been a blessing in so many different ways. Rent is cheap.
Yes.
We live with family. We're able to see our family a lot and do a lot of different things.
I mean, it's really gratifying, too, to get to be someone that they can rely on. Yeah. Like, just to be known as somebody who can help. Like, because I worry about times where it's like, oh, no, we're not going to rely on them. We can't trust them to do what we need help with. Like, it's just nice to not be in that situation.
And we were talking earlier about how Jack did insurance for his cousin when we were in Chicago.
Yeah.
Jack does insurance now for my brother. But it's a very different situation because when he was working for his cousin, you were selling. And I think that was a huge part of it. You didn't like selling. And now working for Nate, you're doing customer service and you get to work from home a lot. And because you get to work from home a lot, you get to hang out with the baby a lot.
It's so great. And it's been so awesome.
I know that's great for them because that's an extra set of hands. And I know that's great for you because you love kids.
Yes. Well, and that's something that I'm really grateful for as well, just again comparing when I first started in insurance and now, is that a lot of the reason why my cousin brought me on when we were in Chicago is because they were having their first baby and they needed help with their agency. Yeah. And wouldn't you know it, that just I should put that on my resume. It's like, hey, I'm great at being here to help out with like starting up an insurance agency and also watching children.
And also helping with your firstborn.
Exactly. Exactly.
You guys could do like a whole show about your house as far as like
Oh,
you
yeah.
have 5 adults, 1 baby.
I've said we
4
should have a
cats.
sitcom.
4 cats, yep.
Keep doing that.
Full house.
Yeah, I
I'm
mean
a
it's
clapper.
pretty
Has anyone done
interesting.
Full House yet? Is that a
Is
thing?
that a thing? Yeah,
Maybe
right?
Family Matters.
Except
Is that good?
except the aunt and uncle live in the basement in this one rather than in the attic.
We are basically Uncle Jesse, and I can't remember her name, but I always loved Uncle Jesse.
Well, of course you did.
Of course, he was beautiful.
He's
Have
a
you
beautiful
seen
man.
him?
I mean, that's also what I bring to the equation. It's just
Right,
my
the beautiful man.
gorgeousness.
Yes, the beautiful man.
But yeah, we are essentially Uncle Jesse and his wife living in the attic, except we live in the basement.
Yeah.
Yep, and Joey, the friend,
Is Bailey's best friend.
Bailey's best friend, who lives with them.
Absolutely. And then, like...
Except Joey was always causing problems, and
Aw.
Bailey's best friend never causes problems.
No,
No,
she
she's
solves problems.
incredible.
Oh my god. She is
House wouldn't run without
amazing.
her.
Right. Thank God for her.
And Killian is like the first of the Olsen twins.
Truly
Jeff and I,
insane.
too, are just so lucky to have people in our lives who are having babies right now. because
Yes.
I think both of us have a lot of baby fever, and we'd love to have a baby, but it's
Okay, so
just
let's
not
bring the
right time.
ADHD into that.
Yes.
Oh, yes, the instant gratification.
Instant
in me
gratification. I want a
Yes.
baby now.
Wants a baby now
Well,
so
see,
bad.
I've had baby fever my whole life.
I know
That's-
you have, yeah.
And I've had the meltdown.
Yeah.
I have had the absolute horrible emotional dysregulation meltdown about wanting a baby so many times. And I think like there is something to be said about that biological part of me that just desires to be a mother.
Totally.
But I think we're so lucky to get to have a nephew and to get to have a goddaughter.
Yes.
Perfect timing too. We didn't have a flower girl or ring bearer. For our
Now
wedding,
you got
and
them.
It was
all of a sudden
amazing.
we've
They were
got
born and we're
both.
like, let's put them to work.
All right, you're here. Now you got a job.
Get to the fields.
Go. Yeah, but when you bring your ADHD into all of that too, as far as like you want the baby now,
But it's just not
and
the
so
time.
you guys are like really having to fight that
Yeah.
instant gratification
Oh, yeah.
thing.
wanting the house now.
Yes.
Wanting a new job now.
Wanting the house now is big for me.
I know it is. I
And it's
know.
not that you guys hate living with
No.
No.
Nate
Oh.
and Bailey, but
Absolutely.
everybody
Furthest
wants
from
their
it.
own space eventually, and
Yeah.
you still have to stay there for a minute.
I think too we feel like we're behind a lot. We
Yeah.
feel like we're behind schedule, and I think it's hard to live with Nate and Bailey because it's difficult to see them as at a different stage in life than we are because we're so similar and we see each other on the same level, and we don't see them as older than us a lot of the time.
Well, and Bailey's not older than you, but they're an
No.
older. They're a family.
Yeah.
already.
Yeah, their
Yes.
timeline is
They-
further.
Yes.
Well, and
Yeah.
Nate is older than me. He had a house before I did.
Sure.
And he was in college. He was, he did a lot of that before I did, which would make sense because he's 3 years older than me.
Right, and by default, it kind of makes his wife farther ahead.
Right.
Exactly.
In a way, yeah.
So we tend to feel like we are behind because we don't have the house, we don't have the baby, we don't have the job that we want, we don't have the car.
Mm-hmm.
And that's hard sometimes to reconcile with and to feel like you're not doing something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, and there's a lot of validation that comes with like being a couple that has your own space.
Yeah.
Like and the fact that we've been with them for so long now, it's about 2 years now, which is great. And it's been really incredible. But like there is a validity to kind of being recognized as a standalone couple.
Yeah.
That like is hard to balance sometimes with also wanting to be there and be helpful.
And we did live alone
Yes.
for a minute. We lived with just the two of
Yeah,
us.
and they never have.
No, and they never have.
They
They've
never
always
have.
had roommates, and they've always, and that brings it back to them being social creatures.
Yes.
Because we lived together for a year or 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And we liked it.
It was great.
It was
Oh my god,
comfortable.
it was fantastic.
It
Well,
was
and
we made
amazing.
videos together. It was
Yeah.
awesome.
Well, and I know Bailey would like that too, but the circumstances are just not.
It's different.
Yeah.
Well, because they financially can use your help,
We financially can
and you
use their help.
financially
yeah.
can use
It's
their
very
help.
symbiotic.
It's a very
Yes.
symbiotic relationship, and I know you guys want to move forward. In a lot of ways, I feel like the wedding will move you forward.
Yes, right.
Because
But then,
it's
timeline
done.
will-
Because then you will be Mr. and Mrs. Keeson.
yeah.
but there's a whole different aspect to that then, because we're a married couple that's living with a different married couple. We're a married couple that's still living with family.
And what do you think that says about your generation? Because this
my
is
gosh,
not
we
an
all do.
uncommon story
not at
that
all.
you hear.
Family houses are becoming so much more common and
Two
good thing too.
of our closest friends,
Multi-generational homes.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's becoming more the norm because
it's impossible to afford to live alone.
Yes.
And two of our closest friends have lived with their parents for a really long time. They just finally got an apartment on the
Yeah.
other side of the state, which is hard for us too because they're two of our closest friends. They too lived with their family for a long time, and I think it's becoming more common. But it does give you this feeling. It's like, okay, well, I don't hate living with them, but I do want to live together, just the two of us, for a little bit before we have a kid.
and in your own
Yeah.
space. I remember moving into our house in Lawrence.
Yeah.
And the first thing I said to your dad is, if I want to dig a hole in the backyard, I can.
Yes.
Nate and I did.
If we want to put holes in the walls, you can.
You know,
Yes.
it's like, this is my
Yes.
house. I can do whatever I want with
Absolutely.
it.
Yes.
And there's something to be said for that.
And then we had that. We had that
Yes.
when we were living in apartments together, just the two of us. And then we had to give it up for financial reasons. And not that we don't like living with them, but it is different.
It is.
And it is.
Well, it's very American dream of us to come at it with the perspective of, oh, I want my own home, I want my own car.
You want the
like,
white picket fence and the
Yeah,
baby and the
absolutely.
car and all of the stuff that you want. But
It's hard to kind of trust the process and trust the timeline to work out.
something I've been saying a lot lately is that your early 20s, or your 20s in general, just kind of suck a little bit.
Yeah, they're for growing, which is painful.
Yeah, you drive crappy cars, you work crappy jobs,
You
you
learn a
live in
lot.
crappy situations, you learn a lot. And then I'm hoping in your 30s you get to use some of that information.
I remember when I turned 30, like everybody was like, oh, you're turning 30. Ooh, you're
I can't
turning
wait to turn 30.
Ooh.
And I said, I can't wait to be 30 because people will take me seriously. Because I'm
Right.
still a freaking kid when I'm in my 20s.
Right.
And
I'm a 6-year-old adult. I'll say it again.
Right, yeah. But I think about, how different it is now trying to start out as opposed. Dad and I bought our first house for $41,000.
Yeah.
You can buy a car for that now.
Jeez, yeah.
And that was not that long. I mean,
And
okay,
you
so Dad
guys-
and I have been married for 34 years.
Yeah.
Nice.
And we bought that house 2 years after we got married. So 32 years ago, we bought a house for $41,000.
Yep.
And now you can't buy a parking spot
No.
for
No, seriously.
You could buy a lot of
$41,000 is a very nice down payment.
Yeah, right? Oh, that's
Exactly.
nice. That's nice. So, and that was a really good deal at the time for us. Tiny little house. We've never lived in a big house.
Nope. Never needed to, and that's part of the problem
Yeah.
too, is that Jack and I don't want to live in a giant house.
Yeah,
We
absolutely.
don't need a lot of land.
We need
don't
just
need a giant
enough.
house. We just want our space.
Yep.
Okay, butterflies, that's where we're going to cut the conversation off this time. If you want to hear more, make sure you come back next time for a continuation of this conversation. If you've enjoyed the content and you like what you're hearing, make sure you hit that like button and that subscribe button. It helps a lot. And we'll see you next time.